Minutes or less. Hey, good. Ooh, it is just before noon here on, what's today, Mike? Friday, July 31st, last day of the month. Hopefully you're not watching this video. You're at the desk working, closing deals, pounding on customers, get them to sign, right? Working your CIT, whatever you need to do before the end of the month. That's what we do in the car business, right, Mike, on the last day of the month?
I hope so.
So if you don't know who my guest is today, good friend, industry guru, VP at Max, Mike Cavanaugh. How you doing, Mike?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for making time for me. Tell me what have you been up to last couple days, week or so?
Took my first trip actually in quite a while to go see some dealers and spend some time on the East Coast here this week. So it was a little interesting being on in the airports and on the airplanes and then in dealerships and getting a chance to interact with people. But it's business is still good from everybody that I talk to. It's obviously we've got some incredible challenges, but everybody's in good spirits and selling a lot of cars still.
It's weird traveling, right? It's not like it used to be.
No, there's probably 10% of the people at the airport. And I think on both of my flights, there was, the flight back, there was 9 people and there was probably 15 people on the flight out, which typically is a full flight.
Yeah. I did this. I talked about it last week in my video. What about the hotel? How's your hotel?
I think I was the only person that I saw while I was there. So it's kind of weird. I mean, I felt like I was in The Shining a little bit, to be honest with you. It was weird.
I was at the Renaissance, and the girl behind the counter was literally folding towels while she was checking at the same time. Like totally, yeah.
I actually had to call the hotel to get them to open the doors because the doors were locked. They had to come unlock the doors and let me in. So it's definitely weird in that industry right now for sure.
Yeah. So I've got my weekly slides that I cover. With around the industry, I'd love to go through them with you, get a different perspective. You're on the sales side of the house, talking to prospective clients a lot more than I am. So, any insights you want to give would be great. I'd like to start out with the information from NADA. This is the weekly sales volume, and it looks like wholesale sales have I think they're trying to flatten out. Is that what you're hearing and seeing?
Hearing the same thing. I mean, the struggle of finding inventory is as real as it's ever been right now. I should say finding inventory that you can sell and make money on. We're still seeing some pretty good grosses with the inventory that is selling right now, but everybody is having a bit of a challenge. I think seeing people get creative when it comes to where they're sourcing vehicles from and not just those typical auction channels. I've heard more talk about that than I ever have.
Yeah. I really thought that the volume was going to really continue up a lot higher. I've talked to both some big buyers as well as some suppliers, and it's just like the cars have ran out. Everybody bought everything.
Right. I think you also got to have, the high new car volume to have used car trades that,
Sure.
function through that. You've got to have those off-lease vehicles that get turned in to roll through there. And I think a lot of people have been buying direct from some of these rental car companies too, in mass, that a lot of that would make it through the channel. So I think just the sheer number of vehicles running through is a little bit due to those distribution channels.
Yeah, good point. I think a lot of stuff that might have typically gone through the auction did not.
Right.
Avoid a lot of things, So this is sale prices, which continue to, according to NADA and JD Power, continue to rise. The 14th consecutive week, with almost a 1% point ending last week. I mean, God dang it, when is it going to stop? What do you think?
That's the question. I think, once we start to see some new car inventory really start to roll in consistently, I think we'll start to see a trend a little bit differently. But I've been expecting this to level out for a couple of weeks now, and it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So I really like the information Black Book delivers weekly. I think you turned me on to it, and they really have, I would say, upped their game since the virus took hold back in March. But this week I was a little disappointed, Black Book. We're car guys. We like a lot of pictures and graphs and stuff, and there just wasn't a lot of that this week, was there?
No, our brain kind of shuts off if we go too many words without a picture.
I
I hate
mean,
to say that.
yeah,
but
or I'm trying to do this video here to give guys the 5 to 10 minute version of some of this information, but we'll break it down. So they agreed wholesale prices are still on the rise. Retail listing prices are starting to flatten a little bit. They said showed a slower increase. This was interesting though. That Hertz is has agreed in principle with their creditors to avoid like that fire sale. So who knows what that'll do to the auction piece of this, but they don't have to race to get rid of their cars like everybody thought they would.
If you look at that number too, Tim, the one thing that it sounds like a really big number when you talk about 180,000 units, right?
Yeah.
But I broke down the math with somebody, I think it was last week or earlier this week. And when you break down 180,000 over 6 months divided by 50 states, it's really not that big of a number. I mean, we're talking about if you can distribute that evenly across the rest of you, that shouldn't have as big of an impact as I think a lot of us initially, our gut reaction was, wow, this is really going to throw values off. And I was guilty of that myself, I have to say. Yeah. But sometimes to slow down and take a step back and say, all right, well, Hertz has got locations in every state. These cars aren't coming, only to, Manheim, PA, or they're not all going to, Orlando or something. They're going all over the country. It's really not that large of a number when you break it down. So I'd say if anybody hasn't done the math on what that looks like, it should be pretty evenly distributed.
Yeah, so that's going to tie into, I think, our final point here. But the last thing that Black Book talked about here was the number of automotive loans classified as hardship. I think we've been talking about this for a while, that the things that are going on should not be going on, right? All the indicators say different. But I think, we'll see.
I talked to a friend of mine in Detroit yesterday, Tim, who said, I talked to him at the end of the day yesterday when I got back from my East Coast trip. And I said, hey, how's business going? And he said, every single person that came in that tried to buy a car today was on unemployment.
Yeah. So there you go.
And that's a pretty tough market in Detroit proper. But I mean, those hardships are going to continue to climb and affect how we do business for sure.
Yeah. This was one of the graphs though that Black Book did share this week. The weekly depreciation looks like is kind of in line with their retail. It's starting to flatten a little bit. The blue line indicates all cars. I'm sorry, the black line's all vehicles. Cars are down a little bit. Trucks continue to peak a little bit. Man, are trucks expensive, huh? Everybody's telling me.
Crazy expensive right now.
Yeah, crazy. So this is everything. Every time I went into a store over the last 3 weeks, I looked at the GM or the person I was talking to. I'm like, man, isn't it crazy how we're still going on? And this is a number that Black Book continues to supply us with and talk about a lot, is the unemployment. And it looks like it's starting to bend up a little bit. What are you thinking?
I mean, I think with the shutdowns that we're seeing, kind of some of these states going back a phase, it has to be expected. And again, just, take out the graphs and the data, but just the kind of the common sense observation stuff. When I'm at the airport and it's 10% of the people I typically see at the airport, when there's 9 people on an airplane, when I'm the only guy, in The Shining here at the hotel, and I go for a run every morning, and I was in a pretty big city and I might've saw 3 people on the street in the morning when I went for a run. And there's just, people aren't out doing things. We know this unemployment is going to be a factor. And I think, that unemployment, that extra money just ran out, and there's not a deal yet.
Yeah. So we'll see if this unemployment thing really starts to play effect. My advice to guys is and I'm on this mantra, Mike, just so you know, trade. You've got to get better at trading for cars. The closing rates at the dealers that I'm working with in general. I mean, there's some guys that are doing really well, but in general are flat to down. And we've got to get better at that because cars are expensive. And if everything starts to come back, you're going to be able to need to find inventory that you can afford to make money on. So more on that. Tell me about your experience in dealerships. How was that? I shared this with the guys last week. I love this sign from the guys at Hendrick. Felt really comfortable going into the stores that they were promoting a real clean and safe environment. Did you get the same feeling where you were at?
Yeah, I mean, there was hand sanitizer everywhere. Every single person was wearing a mask. I think everybody was very respectful, especially, in the Northeast. They got hit pretty hard, so I think everybody's extra cautious about it. But every dealership employee, it didn't matter if they were in service, in parts, in sales. Every single person had it on the entire time. So I think it's hey, nobody likes wearing a mask. Nobody does. But right now it's starting to slow things down for the people that are using them.
Hey, so don't tell Fitz that I showed up to work today in a t-shirt and hat and you wore a sport coat. I could get me in trouble. I don't know.
Hey, no worries. I'm usually wearing the same thing or a little bit worse every day. So you caught me on a good day.
All right, dude. I appreciate your time. Have a great weekend with your family. Stay safe. We're going to be dodging a hurricane here in the Carolinas.
Yeah, you too, Tim.
All right.
Stay safe. See you later.